3W+H. What the heck is that? Let's talk about communication. I don't know how many times I have mentioned that communication is paramount. That's true, no doubt. But the other thing that I would like to touch base is actually how to build the communication. Like, how would you know that your communication is efficient, and if there is any specific formula that can help you to find out if something is missing in your communication plan? This is what I would like to talk about today. So let's discuss in a nutshell what communication plan, like what's the perfect and efficient professional communication plan consists of, and how would you manage it as a project manager, making sure that you have everything needed in place. Here is my formula. I'm going to break it down for you just in a minute. 3W+H. What the heck is that? So I have been coming up with this formula by throwing everything in a single bucket, starting from the information I have learned before, ending with my personal experience, and what's the best is that I have polished it out from project to project and finding out what's missing and what should be added or probably eliminated in order to make sure that my communication plan is efficient, everything is covered, there are no like blind gaps or blind spots in it, and everybody is receiving the necessary information that they're expecting to receive. What's 3W? Pretty much straightforward. This is who, what, and when. Let's discuss it in more details. Before you decide how the communication should be built, you basically need to understand who are you going to communicate with. And in the very first step, in the first W, we need to find out who are your project stakeholders. Like, as you remember, a stakeholder is someone who could be impacted or who can impact your project. List every single person your project is connected with and find out what relation this person has to your project. The number first step, we need to find out who are we going to deliver the information about the project, or who would we need this information from. Second W, what? We already know who these people are. Like, we found out who are our stakeholders. Should this be like business team? Should this be marketing team? Should this be software development team? So we have all those guys listed. Now it's time to find out what exactly we need to communicate, or what exactly we need from them in order to build an efficient communication streams on our project. And let's not simply be flat on that. We need to determine what type of the information we are going to communicate to them. Like, what's the purpose of those communications? And let's be as much granular as possible. What can help you here is to separate those guys into groups based on the type of information and the purpose of the communication that you are going to establish on your projects. Here's a simple example of this gradation. Definitely throughout the project, you are going to collect different type of data. And this means that not everybody needs to receive the same information. And here comes the what. Like, what the software development team should be aware of, what the business should be aware of. For example, when it comes to project planning, definitely the software development team should be aware of every single stage that's coming up on their path. Like, should it be the business analysis? Should this be the design creation? Should this be estimates? Should this be tests, verification, wherever comes next? And what's not less important, they need to know where to get the information about their tasks, right? So what's about the business? Do you feel the business guys are really interested? What's the technical description of every single task? I'm not sure. What the business is interested in is the impact, the value, and the profit they're going to get with the final product that's going to be delivered to the market. From this perspective, it's pretty much straightforward and clear how are we going to separate this information. Technical information, technical details is for the software development team, business goals and deliverables for the business guys. Hopefully, this makes the what thing a little bit more transparent. The last W in our 3W thing is the when. In terms of the when, we need to determine when are we going to deliver the information. The timing is really important. Once we know who and what are we going to communicate, we need to determine when this information should be delivered. One of the perspectives why it's really important is setting up the expectations. Talking about the software development team, remember we were having an example of the technical tasks description. I bet those guys would need this information upfront before they estimate their work. Otherwise, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? And the same thing comes when we talk about the business people. When it comes to business people, it's also important for them to set the expectations. We need to timely communicate when they should expect to receive the results and deliverables so that they could communicate it further to the marketing team and to the final consumers. If you remember, we have started from who, So we need to have a list of stakeholders who should receive the information about the project or who should give the information about the project to us. Secondly, we have been decomposing the information that we are going to leverage into the types of the communication and the purpose of those communications so that it could help us make it even more granular and specific when it comes to managing the communication streams. And thirdly, we have been talking about when should we deliver any sort of the information to the stakeholders. Before we are moving to the H thing in our formula, make sure to pause for a second and to give this video a like. If you're not subscribed yet, smash the button, tap the notification bell, and we are moving on. What we have left, the not less important thing, which is how. What I'm talking about is that it's really cool to know who are you going to chat with, what are you going to chat about, and when, but it really matters how are you going to chat with those people. When it comes to project management, again, communication is paramount, and this means that you should really master this skill. The most important thing from the personal and professional perspective is not only get things done, but to know how to actually get things done. The worst thing that you can do is to have the communication plan, but when it comes to the actual communication, to deliver the information messy and in a manner that would make it super confusing and challenging to understand what's the goal of this communication, like why are you doing all this stuff. Here are a few tips that can help you making sure that the information is delivered properly, it is heard, and everybody knows what to do next. The very first thing in my list is to be sure that you are concise and to the point. The worst thing possible, throw it out like a spaghetti on a wall without any specific structure. And the person who receives the information needs to make an effort, and sometimes a significant effort, to understand what the heck is going on and why he or she has received this novel, and need to waste his or her time to read it through and to get the general point. Before you are delivering any sort of the communication, should it be in a written way or in a verbal way, make sure that you have the clear structure and there is no extra irrelevant information. Even if you are going to do this over the call, have a structure, put there some thesis that you are going to communicate, and let the person know up front what to expect from this sort of the communication. And the same applies to the written format. Should this be an email or a message in the chat? Again, be concise and be to the point. Tip number 2, as I have mentioned, no one want to waste their time because everybody always have a lot of important things to do. Highlight the goal of this communication upfront. Again, set the expectation. Establish some sort of the contract with the recipient, informing him or her about the goal of this communication. What are you going to talk about? What information they're going to receive? And the next thing to keep in mind is the reasoning. Why do they need this information? Like, what's the purpose of this communication? Okay? Let them know upfront. Again, setting up this contract of the communication, establishing the expectations, like what they're going to hear or what they're going to read and why do they need this. What's next? We need to make sure that what we have communicated is heard appropriately. There are a few ways how you can do this. You can either include some sort of follow-up in the same message. Please let me know if you have received it or if you have any questions. Or we can follow up in the next message like, hey, I have sent you XYZ like a couple of days before. Please let me know if you have received it and if you have any questions, or do we need to clarify anything additionally. If you're doing this verbally over a call or on a meeting, just ask instantly if they have received all the necessary information, if they have understood everything, and when should you expect hearing back from them. What should happen next is to make sure that everybody is clear on the action items and we have set the responsible people who are going to take care of the execution. So for example, you're throwing out the communication about the changes in some specific task for your team. You have gotten their confirmation that they understood that and they're okay to keep things going. What would you like to do next is to highlight what's going to be the next steps. Okay, the changes are clear. Peter are going to take care of the changes that you have discussed and he's going to be the responsible. Or Sandy is going to take care about one part and Bob is going to take care of another part. And the team lead Harry is going to be responsible for making sure that everything is done correctly. These are basically the simple follow-up rules on how to make sure that everybody is on the same page. Now you know my formula on how I'm normally building the communication on my projects. If you have some personal tips on building communication, make sure to let me know in comments. Thanks for watching. Cheers!